Congressman Patrick McHenry. He, of course, is on the House Financial Services Committee, set to become the ranking member of the committee in the new Congress. Talk to me about this hearing, however. It seems like Republicans are quite satisfied with how Vice Chair Quarles is conducting his deregulatory policies at the Fed.
Generally, yes. I think there's a great interest among Republicans that they move more quickly,
right.
That the regulatory agenda has slowed, and we want it to quicken throughout the financial regulators. I think we're in great need of that, especially with the economy and in the situation it's in, and the need for access to capital from my constituents to keep this economy growing.
And you asked him about technology.
Absolutely. I think there's a great opportunity for us to move forward with the next generation of regulation that permits and utilizes technology, including artificial intelligence, to have better regulation, more timely regulation for markets, for banks, for institutions. And there's sort of a great deal of conflicting information we're hearing from regulators on their interest in moving forward on that agenda, and that's what I questioned about and asked that they move more quickly on embracing technology.
So important, especially as these technologies are just developed so much more quickly than they had in the past. There was a moment in this hearing where Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the current ranking member, set to become the chairwoman of the Financial Services Committee in the new Congress, said quite publicly that she likes to keep people, quote unquote, confused. She was joking, of course, about her relationship with the outgoing chairman, Jeb Hensarling. What type of relationship, Congressman, do you hope to have with the chairwoman on the Financial Services Committee as we head into the new Congress?
Well, in my time, I've passed 4 bills that are McHenry Waters bills.
Yes. People won't be surprised to hear that.
Sure. Now, overall, though, my eyes are wide open. I understand from what she said publicly that her agenda is much more about resistance and about oversight and investigations. I think we have a great opportunity for us to continue the path we're on with better regulation, smarter movement, more focused attention on access to capital, more focused attention on the housing crisis.
I want to pick up on access to capital, and then I want to ask you about housing.
Sure.
But with regards to access for capital, that's like Jobs Act 4.0 type of legislation that we're hearing. Do you think there might be some bipartisan legislation that gets out? You mentioned that you've worked with her on 4 bills, but particularly in helping urban communities and rural communities, increasing access to capital, particularly for small businesses and underserved communities.
Well, I've talked about this for the last decade,
exactly.
that we need to do better for urban and rural, and the issues that we're dealing with in those two areas in our country are similar. I think there's a great opportunity for that. This, I understand, though, as the incoming ranking member, that the chair will set the agenda. It's really an open question whether or not Maxine Waters will embrace that, or she will embrace her politics of really more attention from the media and more investigations rather than substance. And I hope that we can actually be of substance.
She released an 8-page memo last week detailing in that memo a host of different regulatory issues that she would like to raise. One of them includes the CFPB. Obviously, you disagree with her on the issue of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but how are you going to use the minority position in terms of on the committee to disagree with her? Or what do you see your role is, particularly on the CFPB?
Well, I think it's actually talk substance rather than politics. Much of that is about the show for the presidential election. Much of that is about politics rather than the substance of what regulators are doing. And so I'm going to focus on the substance. I'm going to focus on the impact on families and communities and institutions.
What about Deutsche Bank? What if that comes up with regard to the president's loans?
Sure. She can get on TV, or anybody can get on TV talking about the president's this or that. My interest is what are we doing to actually enhance financial inclusion in the United States, not about making some show about the president's business transactions from decades ago.
Another area of common ground, Wells Fargo.
Sure, and I've been outspoken critic of how Wells Fargo has taken on and treated their customers. That's all obviously a North Carolina,
very much,
a major footprint in North Carolina. But I've been outspoken this Congress and last Congress about how they've acted. I'll continue to do that.
What do you want to see them do?
I want them to act responsibly.
Yep.
There is a great legacy here with First Union and Wells, First Union and Wachovia, that is built into the culture of those organizations, and something has changed, and something's amiss.
One of the areas that could be a potential bipartisan area is housing reform, maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic. Chairman Hensarling released some proposals in September with regards to outlining his housing policy reform initiatives. Do you agree with that? Would you make any changes to that? Where do you stand on that?
There is nothing new in the housing debate. What policy alternatives we have all been laid out publicly for at least the last 6 years. It's just a question of the political will through the House and the Senate to see this through. A decade ago, the federal government nationalized Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac a decade ago. We've got to move forward with housing finance reform. There are needs in rural communities and urban communities that are unmet now because the cost of housing, the cost and the access to housing. We've got to do better, and I think there's a potential opportunity for us to work for sensible solutions when it comes to housing.
Because back a couple of years ago, the Senate Banking Committee did release a framework, a bipartisan framework in terms of housing reform. What I'm hearing is that you're confident you might be able to get that with Chairwoman Waters.
Sure. There is that opportunity, but you got to put the puzzle pieces together and get the votes commensurate with those puzzle pieces. I don't think that the alternatives that Maxine has currently presented would muster a majority in the House, nor do I think the Senate compromise bill would muster the votes necessary in the House. So we've got to come up with some new way on this, and I'm very open to that and not dogmatic about my approach to housing finance reform.
We've got like 30 seconds left. You're going to be voting for Chairman McCarthy to lead the minority party in the House later this afternoon. Why is he a better choice than Congressman Jordan?
I've worked very closely with Kevin over the last 4.5 years. I've been in House leadership. I think he better represents where most of our conference is among House Republicans. He's done the political part. He's done the policy part. He has all the ingredients to be a great Republican leader in the House of Representatives.
Congressman McHenry, the likely future ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee. We covered it all. And maybe chairman one day. I've got a couple more elections before that to get through. Back to you, Guy.